you could feel closer to Allah regardless of where you are, regardless of the country that you're living in. I think it takes intention. I think it takes taking point number 1 and 2 and 3 and kind of incorporating it in the way that you practice so that you really are able to follow Islam and feel closer to Allah. Because regardless of where you are, Allah is able to see you. Have you ever wondered what it's like to practice Islam in a country where Islam is not the majority? I'm going to share with you the 7 reasons why I'm able to stay consistent and how I think about this. So the number one reason that I'm able to stay consistent is I see this as a test of conviction. Obviously, when you're in a religious country where almost 99% of the population are Muslim, you find it a lot easier to kind of just conform, and you tend to just follow the crowd. It's not because you're really into it. Sometimes you're just following the crowd. Let's say, for instance, you live in a country where most of the ladies wear abayas. That's the clothing that everyone wears. So you just tend to wear it and you don't really think about why you're wearing it. Whereas when you live in a non-religious or non-Islamic country, you have to be convicted. You have to make those steps yourself. You don't just get to follow the crowd. You have to go out of your way. You have to search for special malls where you could buy Islamic or modest clothing. You have to stay committed. You don't hear the call of adhan every single time. You don't hear the call of adhan at all when you live in some states. Well, most of the states, right? You don't hear the call of adhan unless you're inside of the masjid. So you have to get yourself ready, look at the time, install an app maybe on your phone that's going to tell you, oh, this is the time to go pray. So then you go pray. You don't just you don't just hear the call of adhan everywhere you are and just go pray. So I think what's really special about this is that you truly get to actually make the choice to stay convicted instead of just following the crowd and doing what everyone else is doing. Because I find it that in most religious countries, the most Islamic countries, people just follow the crowd. It's not because they want to do it sometimes. When you're in a group of people and everyone's, going to pray, you don't just sit down and not go with them. You just follow them. So I think that instead of being in that kind of environment, this is a test where truly you're in a state where prayer is not priority for most people. So being able to make that decision, go out of your way and pray is something that I find really special, and I think that it brings me closer to Allah. This also, of course, allows you to strengthen your faith within a diverse community setting where you're able to truly just decide that you're practicing, and it's going to make you feel stronger. It's going to make you have that stronger connection with Allah. Number 3 is empowerment through knowledge. This is where you have the opportunity to seek out knowledge, to actually go out of your way to find the rulings of Islam regarding a certain situation. When you live in a non-Islamic country, there aren't all these Islamic rules already put in place to kind of protect you or to help you make it easier for you to practice. For instance, in Islamic countries, people don't have to ask whether or not the food is halal. People don't have to ask whether or not the meat is pork or lamb or beef or goat. Like, people, you don't have to go out of your way to ask if the food is halal, because the country has regulations that makes it so that every food that's coming into the country is halal. In the United States, even going to a restaurant, you have to look into it. Is this a halal restaurant? Is this a halal restaurant? Do they serve halal food? Some things like that. Or sometimes you see individuals acting in a certain way, and it might be interesting to you to join in activities that other people are doing, but you don't know the Islamic ruling regarding that. So you have to seek out knowledge. And this is also where, and this goes into the next point, where you kind of become an ambassador of Islam. So point number 4, and I don't think I'm counting right, but I think it's point number 4, is that you become an ambassador of your religion. So when you have people coming up to you and asking you, hey, why do you wear that thing around your head? Like, you have to know what to tell people, because you don't just say, well, you could say I'm wearing it because of my religion. But it's really interesting when you're able to kind of combine point number 3 and 4 together, kind of seek out knowledge and understand why do we wear hijab, so that when someone asks you, you could tell them, this is why I wear hijab, or why do you pray 5 times a day? When someone asks you, you're going to be able to say, this is why I pray 5 times a day. And a lot of times going into point number 4 is really, you become the face of that religion. So for most people living in the United States, they don't have regular interactions with Muslims. So their only interactions most of the time are what's on the news. So it's really important to kind of be that person who's going to be an ambassador, who's going to showcase an example of Islam that people might not be familiar with, that's positive, so that people have an understanding of the deen and also get to kind of trust that, the actions of individuals and the deen are kind of different, or maybe radicalism and the deen are different. Going back on the idea of having to seek out information, this is where it's important, because when you live in an Islamic country, you have individuals who just go to like Quran school because their parents make them go to Quran school, or who just learn about Quran because their school teaches them about Quran. Because it's Islamic country, they have like religious education that they teach about Quran. Some of the schools, majority of the schools in Islamic countries teach about Quran and the deen and the rulings of the deen. But when you live in a non-Islamic country, you have to seek out, you have to go out to your community, Muslim leaders, and ask them your questions. Another thing you get to do is you get to build a culture of tolerance. You get to build people's understanding that even Muslims can live and coexist with non-Muslims and other religious people and still have a harmonious environment, a coexisting community. A lot of times people see radical things that happen on the news that come from radicalists, and they internalize that and think that that's all Muslims, that's what all Muslims do. But really, when you think about it, you want to think about the fact that when you live within a community, and of course, it's advised in Islam that whichever community or country that you live in, that you abide by those rules, right? You follow those rules as long as they don't go against Islam and they don't harm. So when you live and coexist within a community with other people who have different beliefs, and you have a harmonious kind of relationship with individuals, it showcases us the idea that yes, you can live, Muslims can be your neighbors, and you can still have a tolerant community where everyone's practicing their own religion and no one's causing conflict. So I think it's really important because it brings a peace of mind to other individuals. I've seen a post recently even that someone's talking about the fact that they rather have a Muslim neighbor because they know that their children are going to be educated, their children are going to be having high expectations to kind of be good citizens. And so I think it's really important to have that coexistence with other religions. And it happened even during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that different people with different beliefs coexisted, and at some points it was peaceful, it was harmonious. Another point is that you can still honor your ancestral roots and still connect with Allah and have a connection with Allah. A lot of times people might think that, oh, if I am a revert to Islam, then maybe I got to move to a religious country or Islamic country so that I can practice better or feel closer to Allah. You could feel closer to Allah regardless of where you are, regardless of the country that you're living in. I think it takes intention. I think it takes taking point number 1 and 2 and 3 and kind of incorporating it in the way that you practice, so that you really are able to follow Islam and feel closer to Allah. Because regardless of where you are, Allah is able to see you and hear you. So it doesn't really kind of, it helps to be in a real Islamic country, but it's not one of the most critical things in order to feel closer to Allah, for sure. It is really fulfilling, and we're moving to the last point here, that you kind of feel a fulfillment of purpose when you're living in a country that is not Islamic, and you're practicing your Islam, you're feeling closer to Allah, and you're able to be the ambassador of Islam. And of course, as soon as you wear the scarf, you become an ambassador because people recognize you as a Muslim, or they might ask you, why are you wearing it? Why are you doing this different thing that we don't do here? So as soon as you start internalizing those things and you start seeing things differently, instead of seeing things as a disadvantage, seeing them as an advantage is really going to make you feel fulfilled, because you live in a society where Islam is not dominant, but you still are able to practice. That has a different feeling than being able to live in an Islamic country and things are just made a lot easier, because every single day is going to be a challenge that you're going to go through, that's going to make you stronger, and that's really going to make you want to practice more. For me, the fulfillment of being able to say, okay, I went out today, I didn't see people that look exactly like me, but that's okay. I'm able to stay true to myself and still stay modest and still stay committed And that's a different feeling than living in a community where everyone's practicing the religion and you're just practicing it because everyone's doing it, rather than living in a different community where you get to choose to practice, which is a lot more intentional. And I think it has a lot more barakat for you, because you're choosing, and not only are you choosing, but you're confronting these realities that maybe other people don't have to confront. Maybe you're having to drive like 15, 20, 30 minutes to the masjid, whereas when you live in a religious community, every corner has a masjid. You could hear that everywhere. So I think it's really important to also think about that. These are my 7 reasons why I think it's sometimes more fulfilling living in a non-Islamic country and still being able to practice Islam and still being able to feel closer to Allah. If this video has brought any value to you, go ahead and subscribe to this channel for more content like this. Thank you so much for watching.